Deep in the heart of Bolivia, rising from the Altiplano like a silent sentinel, stands a mountain that changed the world. Not through conquest, not through war, not through the vision of kings or the genius of philosophers, through what lay buried in its veins. For nearly 5 centuries, this single peak has bled metal into human hands, 60,000 tons of pure silver, more than any mountain in recorded history. It bankrolled empires. It minted the first global currency. It connected continents that had never traded before. But every ounce of that wealth was paid for in ways that still echo through time. This is the story of Cerro Rico, the rich hill, and how one mountain became the beating heart of the first truly global economy. Picture the year 1545. The Spanish conquistadors have already toppled the Inca Empire, claimed vast territories, sent home shiploads of gold, looted from temples and palaces. But the initial plunder is running out, and they're hungry for more. High in the Bolivian Andes, in a region so remote that even the Incas barely touched it, a local herder named Diego Hualpa is tracking his llamas across the windswept highlands. The place is called Potosi, 15,000 feet above sea level, bitterly cold, oxygen-thin, barren except for tough grass and scattered rocks, utterly unremarkable. Night falls, and with it comes the killing cold of high altitude. Diego lights a fire to survive until morning, and then something impossible happens. The ground beneath his flames begins to weep silver, molten, pure, streaming from the rocks like metallic tears. He's discovered something that will transform human history. What Diego didn't know was that he'd stumbled upon a geological miracle millions of years in the making. Cerro Rico is the corpse of an ancient volcano, long extinct, but still loaded with treasure from its violent past. During its active period, superheated, mineral-rich fluids surged upward through fractures in the cooling rock. As these hydrothermal solutions crystallized, they deposited minerals in concentrated veins: silver, tin, zinc, lead, layer upon layer upon layer. Most mountains have ore scattered diffusely through their mass, requiring enormous effort to extract tiny amounts of metal. Cerro Rico was different. Its veins were thick, incredibly concentrated, accessible near the surface, some so pure that chunks of nearly raw silver could be broken off by hand. In geological terms, it was a statistical outlier, a freak of tectonic fortune. In human terms, it was the greatest mineral wealth ever concentrated in a single location. Within months of Diego's discovery, word reaches Spanish colonial authorities. Within a year, Potosi transforms from empty highland into an erupting frontier city. Fortune hunters pour in from across the empire and beyond. Spanish nobles seeking quick wealth, indigenous laborers, merchants, priests, enslaved Africans, adventurers from every corner of the known world. The city grows at a pace that defies belief. By 1610, just 65 years after Diego's fire, Potosi's population hits 160,000 people in the freezing, oxygen-starved Andes. A city larger than London emerges, larger than Paris, one of the 5 biggest cities on Earth, existing solely because of what could be dug from a single mountain. The city's wealth is staggering. Churches rise with silver altars. Mansions fill with European furniture and Asian silk. The wealthy throw parties where they shoe their horses with silver, just to show they can. But the silver doesn't stay in Potosi. It flows like water through the arteries of global commerce. Massive mule trains carry the metal west across the brutal Andes, passes to Pacific ports. Spanish galleons transport it north to Mexico, then across the ocean to Spain. From Spain, The silver radiates outward across the globe. It flows to the Netherlands for textiles and tools, to the Ottoman Empire for luxuries, to India for spices and precious stones, and perhaps most significantly, to China, where Spanish silver becomes the foundation of Ming Dynasty currency. Spanish pieces of 8, coins minted from Cerro Rico silver, become the world's first truly global currency. Accepted from London to Lima, from Istanbul to Indonesia. For the first time in human history, a single commodity links economies on every inhabited continent. The modern global economy, where markets in Tokyo affect prices in New York, has its roots in this mountain. Spain itself is the system's biggest winner. The Spanish crown claims the quinto real, the royal fifth. 20% of all silver extracted. That wealth finances massive fleets patrolling every ocean. It funds wars across Europe against the Netherlands, France, England, the Ottoman Turks. It builds grand cathedrals. It pays armies. It underwrites the Counter-Reformation. For 100 years, Spain is the uncontested superpower of the Western world, and Cerro Rico is the engine driving that supremacy. The 30 Years' War, funded partly by Bolivian silver, the Spanish Armada, built with Potosi's wealth, the colonization of the Philippines, financed by the mountain. But there's another side to this story, one written not in silver, but in blood and bone. The Spanish implement a system called the mita, a forced labor draft. Indigenous men from villages across the region are conscripted into the mines. 1 year of service, mandatory, no exceptions. The conditions inside Cerro Rico are nightmarish, beyond modern comprehension. Tunnels carved entirely by hand. No ventilation, no safety protocols. Workers descend hundreds of feet into airless shafts on primitive ladders, carrying only candles for light. They chip ore for 12, 14, 16-hour shifts. Then they haul the loads back up on their backs, climbing those same treacherous ladders with 100 pounds of rock. Cave-ins kill constantly. Silicosis, lung disease from breathing rock dust, is epidemic. Men drown in flooded tunnels. They fall from ladders in the darkness. They collapse from exhaustion and never get up. Scholars believe somewhere between 4 and 8 million people died in these mines over the colonial period, not in dramatic disasters, ground down slowly, methodically, by exhaustion, disease, and the relentless hunger for metal. And through it all, decade after decade, century after century, the mountain gives. But geology doesn't care about human ambition. By the late 1600s, the richest veins are tapped out. Production slows. The easy silver is gone. Miners dig deeper, chase thinner veins, extract lower-grade ore, requiring more effort for less return. By the 1800s, silver production has collapsed to a fraction of its peak. Potosi begins to fade. The merchant families depart. The mansions fall into disrepair. The population drains away. Spain's empire, too, begins its long decline. Drained by endless wars, weakened by economic mismanagement, its silver lifeline drying up. The mountain that built the empire couldn't sustain it. Here's what's remarkable. Cerro Rico never stopped. Even today, nearly 500 years after Diego Hualpa's fire, miners still work its tunnels. The silver is mostly gone, but tin remains, zinc, lead, other minerals that industrial economies hunger for. Approximately 15,000 people still make their living inside this mountain, using methods that haven't fundamentally changed since the 1500s. They have dynamite now instead of pickaxes, helmets instead of cloth caps, but the danger is the same. The dust is the same. The average life expectancy for a Cerro Rico miner is somewhere in the 40s, decades shorter than the national average, and the mountain itself is literally dying. 5 centuries of tunneling have honeycombed Cerro Rico with thousands of miles of shafts, weakening its structural integrity. Parts of the peak have already caved in. The summit has lost several hundred feet of elevation. Engineers warn that catastrophic collapse could happen within decades. And yet, people keep digging. Because for communities with few other options, there's no choice. The landscape around Potosi tells its own grim story. 5 centuries of mining have poisoned the soil with heavy metals: arsenic, lead, mercury, cadmium. These toxins leach into groundwater, contaminate rivers, accumulate in crops. Tailings, mountains of waste rock, pile in massive heaps around the city. When the wind blows, they fill the air with toxic dust. The rivers run discolored with mining waste, carrying pollution hundreds of miles downstream. This is the environmental cost of 5 centuries of extraction, a debt that won't be paid off in our lifetimes or our children's. The mountain's wealth, so thoroughly distributed around the world, left its costs concentrated in one place. So what do we make of Cerro Rico? It's a monument to human ambition, our extraordinary ability to reshape the world, to build systems that span oceans, to create wealth on scales never before imagined. The modern world, interconnected, globalized, running on international trade, was built partly on the foundation this mountain provided. But it's also a warning about the price of that ambition, about who pays it and who profits, about the human and environmental costs that get externalized, ignored, forgotten, about the difference between building something sustainable and simply extracting value until there's nothing left. Today, Cerro Rico is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Recognized for its historical significance, tourists visit, though not many. Historians study it as one of the pivotal sites in world economic history. And the mountain, scarred, honeycombed, slowly collapsing, still being mined, still stands against the Bolivian sky, a reminder that the forces shaping our world aren't abstract concepts. They're physical, geological, human. They have weight. They leave marks. They cost something. And sometimes they're concentrated in a single mountain, waiting to be dug free, for better or worse. This was the story of the mountain that built an empire, and the empire that couldn't stop digging, even when the mountain had nothing left to give.